Hola, mis amigos, and welcome to the latest episode of Touching Base. Today, I'm going to be breaking down the National League East. I'm very excited to look at this division because of the moves that were made this offseason. I feel like all the teams improved in one way, shape, or form, besides the Miami Marlins. Miami is in a rebuild mode, so I do not believe they will be competitive for the next number of years. But every other team in the division has put themselves in position to vie for a National League East title, and I'm looking forward to seeing them face off during this season. The first team I'm going to break down is going to be the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves won the National League East last season with a record of 90-72, the lowest win total of any team that made it into the playoffs last season. That being said, the Braves did have Ronald Acuna Jr., who won Rookie of the Year and had a breakout season. I was very impressed with what I saw from Acuna last year, primarily hitting at the top of the order, setting the base for the rest of the lineup, but at the same time showing his power potential and his impact at the top of the lineup. I'm looking forward to seeing him progress in his career. I do believe he's going to be a perennial all-star. I see him vying for numerous awards, Silver Sluggers, and MVP awards in his future. I do really like what he has shown so far. An intriguing addition that the Braves did make during this offseason was bringing in Josh Donaldson, third baseman. Third base wasn't really a hole for the Braves last year, but Donaldson definitely solidifies it. Having won an MVP award, he is a very good defender when healthy. He did sign a one-year deal basically to show that he is healthy and he wants to prove what he can do. He's from the Atlanta region, so I do believe that going home for him will be nice for just this one season, build up his stock, and hit the market again next year and see if he finds something a little bit more long-term. I don't believe he'll re-sign with them because of top prospect Austin Riley's right around the corner. So I believe he'll be entrenched over at third base in the next coming seasons. If you look around the infield in total with Ozzie Albies and Dansby Swanson up the middle, you have Freddie Freeman at first base. That's already one of the best infields in all of baseball. You add Acuna Jr. and Ciarte at the top of the lineup, and they brought back Nick Markakis. They have a really good lineup going into this year. My concern comes with their starting pitching. Now, they had good starting pitching last year, but they don't have a stable ace in that rotation. They have numerous prospects, pitching prospects, through many trades that they've done in the last couple years. So their farm system is pretty stacked when it comes to pitching prospects. But at the end of the day, you don't know what you're going to get from pitching prospects until they prove it in the show. And at this point, they have a lot of potential, but I don't have as much confidence in them as I do other teams in this division. Their bullpen with Vizcaino as their closer should be pretty good, but at the end of the day, I feel like they don't have the pitching to hold up with the rest of this division. Honestly, I wouldn't say they have the worst pitching, but the Mets and the Nationals have significantly more accomplished pitchers. So it's going to be fun to see if the Braves pitching can take the steps forward needed. Specifically, guys like Fultonavich, Kyle Wright, Soroka, and Touki Toussaint. I want to see what they do. I want to see if they make the strides that they need to make these guys a perennial National League East contender the way they were in the 90s. The next team I'm going to be talking about is the Philadelphia Phillies. Philadelphia overhauled their roster more than any team this offseason. When you look at the additions of Andrew McCutchen, Gene Segura, David Robertson, and JT Realmuto, those are really good additions to any ball club. You're adding an MVP in McCutchen. You're adding a Gold Glove caliber shortstop and basically 200 hit machine in Segura. You're adding an established closer who's done it in not only New York and also Chicago. So Robertson's not going to be fazed by what Philly has to offer. And one of, if not the most dynamic catchers in the game in JT Realmuto. When you look at his defense, when you look at his base running abilities, the fact that he can hit you over 280 and probably sock over 20 home runs, especially in Philadelphia where the ball flies, those are some pretty good additions to the ball club. Oh, and on top of that, they signed Bryce Harper to a 13-year, $330 million contract. Now, the biggest deal in baseball history. The other moves themselves would have sufficed to put Philadelphia in contention to compete for the National League East title. Adding Harper, not only an MVP, but a Silver Slugger, a baseball rat, a marketable, invigorating superstar to your ball club, puts them on another level. I feel like adding the addition of Harper takes them from National League East contender to World Series contender. They still have Aaron Nola and Jake Arrieta anchoring the rotation. Aaron Nola coming in third place in the Cy Young Award last offseason, and Jake Arrieta having won the award himself and mentoring the rest of the staff. I already talked about Robertson, who's gonna be their new closer, putting Sir Anthony Dominguez in a less stressful role. That'll definitely benefit him. This team is gonna be really good. If you look at their lineup is going to be quite formidable. The way that I see it, having Gene Segura and Odubel Herrera at the top of the lineup, setting up for Harper and Rhys Hoskins in the middle of the lineup, and then supplementing them with McCutchen and Realmuto, that makes for a much longer lineup. And in a ballpark like Philadelphia where the ball flies, it's a very hard place to come into and expect to take a series, especially with the fact that their rotation is young and developing. They're going to be a problem for the next number of years to come. I don't see many holes on this roster. If anything, third base would probably be their least consistent position, as well as center field, but they have top prospects like Alec Baum and Mickey Moniak, which was a number 1 overall pick, I believe 2 or 3 seasons ago. So no matter what position they don't feel strongly at the moment, they have put themselves in a position to be able to fix that position in the years coming forward. Also, the fact that Harper's deal was stretched out over 13 years as opposed to 10 years, the way Machado's deal was, gives Philadelphia the flexibility to keep their payroll at a relatively lower number and use the money that they have saved and be able to give it to free agents coming into the market in the next couple seasons, i.e. best player in the game right now, Mike Trout. Harper's already talked about how he would like to recruit as many players as possible, so I do feel like this contract was very, very lucrative for the city of Philadelphia in multiple ways. Not only for the 2019 season, but also beyond now. Philadelphia is going to be in a good spot for years to come. The next team I want to hit on is going to be Washington. When you think of Washington, you think of Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, Patrick Corbin. Those 3 men are going to be what makes or breaks the national season this year. They're going to be anchored by their rotation. Scherzer is their true ace. They're number 1. They pay him the big bucks to get them the big wins. Consistently. Gives you 200 innings. Gets you 200 plus strikeouts. Mind you, last year, he got you 300 strikeouts. Come on, this is what you want out of your ace. He's your true number one. He's the guy you give the ball to in game one of a playoff series, and you feel confident that you're putting your team in the best position to win that game. Every time Max Scherzer's out there, your team is at an advantage over the opponent's team. Strasburg and Patrick Corbin are very good supplementary pieces for one of the best rotations in the league. Patrick Corbin signing a 6-year deal this offseason, and Steven Strasburg. Those are two really good pieces to have after your true number one. So all in all, I feel like their rotation is definitely one of the strongest points of their team. Their bullpen isn't as strong. They've had issues with their bullpen for years, but it seems like Sean Doolittle has found a home there, and he has done a very good job as their closer. So I feel like going into the season, their pitching is very strong. Losing out on Harper, who obviously signed with Philadelphia, actually frees up the Nationals pretty well. They have Juan Soto, who was in contention for Rookie of the Year last year and had a very, very good call-up once he did come up. And Victor Robles, which is one of their top prospects and now has a pretty open path towards being their opening day center fielder, as well as Adam Eaton, who they have as their table setter to go with Trey Turner at the top of the lineup. That's a very good outfield. And the money that they did not give Harper, mind you, they offered him a 10-year, $300 million deal, which he did not take, actually is a good thing for Washington in the sense that now they can take that money that they didn't spend on him and extend other players on their roster, i.e. Anthony Rendon, Trey Turner, like I just said, Juan Soto when his time does come. Their team is going to be very formidable in the next number of years. They signed this offseason Brian Dozier to a 1-year deal, which I feel was a very under the radar move, because this is a man who prior to last season, when he was playing with the Dodgers, more of a platoon situation, not getting everyday at-bats, I feel like he's somebody who needs to have consistent playing time. He needs to play against lefties and righties. He needs to play every single day, and if he is allowed to, he can post up over 30 home runs. Especially with the lineup that they have, he's not being looked at to carry the load for the entire lineup. He's just looking to complement the rest of the pieces well. So the fact that it was only a 1-year deal, he can build up his value the way that Donaldson is also doing, and then go out on the market and try to score himself a better deal in the offseason. They already have a replacement in their minor leagues in the name of Carter Kieboom, who's gonna probably come up, if not during this season, he'll be the second baseman starting next season. But he's a very good prospect that they have coming up. So the Washington Nationals are pretty well set for the future. I definitely do believe that the money that wasn't given to Harper should be invested as much as possible into Anthony Rendon. If you look at the third basemen in the league nowadays, a lot of the really higher end third basemen are getting locked up to multi-year extensions. Machado signed for a long time. Arenado just got extended. Some of the premier third basemen are starting to really lock themselves into their organizations for a number of years. So I feel like it's time for Washington to do the same with Anthony Rendon. Rendon is an on-base machine. He's very, very good at putting the ball in play. He doesn't strike out often, and he is somebody who you know what you're gonna get out of him. The team overall is gonna be pretty good this year, and after a disappointing 2018, I definitely see the entire organization with a renewed sense of vigor, because I feel like they had gotten complacent the last number of years, making it to the playoffs each year, but then getting bounced in the first round. And last year, they didn't even make it to the playoffs. They had an 82-80 record. Very, very steep drop off from what they were used to. So I definitely look at Washington as a team that's going to be hungry and looking to make some big splashes when it comes to October. Up next, we're gonna hit the New York Mets. Jacob deGrom, National League Cy Young Award winner. Syndergaard, 6'6", throwing 100, the literal embodiment of Thor. This man is a superhero. That's how gigantic this man is. And he's at number 2. And then after that, Zach Wheeler, who's finally shown that he's putting it all together. Those 3 can be aces by themselves, and all of them are on the same rotation on the Mets. They have a very good rotation. On top of that, they just traded for Seattle's closer, Diaz, and now their rotation can only be benefited from the fact that they have a true closer, something they haven't had since Billy Wagner. They brought back Familia, who was a good closer for them, but I feel like Edwin Diaz is more of a dominant strikeout closer, and that two-headed monster is definitely going to be a problem in late innings. I don't see the Mets coughing up leads the way they have the last number of years as often. To me, their lineup has improved with them bringing on Cano and them signing Wilson Ramos. Wilson Ramos is a good catcher, a good offensive catcher, not the best defender in the world, but adequate enough that he's going to get the job done, and he's going to definitely provide more slugging percentage from the catching position that they haven't had since Piazza, honestly. As for Cano, they have the last 5 years of his 10-year deal that they now have to account for, and is expected to play primarily second base throughout the rest of this deal. Cano is still a good defensive second baseman, but you wonder, with the 80-game suspension that he had last year for performance-enhancing drugs, you wonder what you're going to get out of him. We have to just look now towards the future and see what he can produce from now on. I don't feel that the fact that he's over 35 is going to hinder him, because he's always been a very good bat-to-ball player. He's been an all-star throughout his career. I have a lot of faith in what Cano can do on the baseball field still, regardless of what his age is. He's a very smooth player. First base is an interesting position with the Mets, as Peter Alonso and Dominic Smith are battling to see who comes out as their primary first baseman during this spring training. And I have more faith in Alonso than I do in Dominic Smith, but I do feel with proper development, one of, if not both of them, will be major league ready talents. I feel that Alonso is going to be their first baseman of the future. I see them trading away Dominic Smith and really progressing with what they have. They're going to have a very strong nucleus for the next number of years. Sadly, we probably won't see much of Yoenis Cespedes this year, as he has an injury to his Achilles, so he will be out for most of, if not the entire 2019 season. He says he's gonna play, but who knows with this injury when he's actually gonna be able to get back on the field. But the fact that they don't have him this year is a big hole in the middle of that lineup. So I feel that in 2020, this team is gonna be more positioned to make moves, as opposed to this year where they're going to set themselves up in position to make the next leap forward, a la the way that Philadelphia and the Braves were last year. I see the Mets in a very similar position this year, potentially opening up their checkbooks at the end of this season to extend Jacob deGrom, to possibly extend Syndergaard as well, and let their young players develop. Something the Mets haven't done in numerous years is, one, stockpile talent in their minor league system, and two, let that talent flourish. I'm very glad that their starting pitching is still together, because they've came up together and they're very effective. I didn't even touch on Steven Matz, who, if he can put it all together, that's quite a force. I have a lot of faith in what the Mets can do going forward. It's just a matter of them not stepping on their own toes. They need to give themselves time to properly develop and not try to rush the process and stunt the growth of what they have at the moment. Last but not least, we're We're gonna talk about Miami. Miami Marlins are in a complete rebuild. They are, thankfully, basically the only team in the National League that I feel isn't actively trying to compete this season. I say thankfully because that means that the rest of the league is in a spot that they could potentially see themselves going into the playoffs. So it's very good for the sport. You definitely want to see competitive baseball happening as much as possible, and it's something I really appreciate about the National League, that every team is in some way, shape, or form in contention aside from Miami. You understand that they're not going to be competitive this year, next year, until a couple years down the road. They traded away last offseason their entire outfield. Stanton going to the Yankees, Yelich going to Milwaukee, Ozuna going to St. Louis. Then this offseason, they traded JT Realmuto, their best piece after last season, to Philadelphia. Miami has brought in veterans like Neil Walker and Curtis Granderson to help their young position players and give them more guidance going into next season. They have Starlin Castro as well. So it is going to be interesting to see if their young players can make necessary steps forward. Like a Lewis Brinson, I was very disappointed in his 2018 season because I had high hopes that he could probably be a very important piece of this franchise and help expedite their rebuild as much as possible. But with some of these trades that they've made in the last couple years, they have supplemented their farm system immensely. If you look at players like Sixto Sanchez, they just got him back in the Realmuto trade, and a young player named Victor Mesa, outfielder from Cuba. They should be making noise sometime soon, but definitely not really looking for anything special in 2019. At the end of the day, as long as they're showing effort and showing consistent energy, that's all you can really ask from their young players at this point. I have confidence in what Derek Jeter is going to be able to do as the owner of the Marlins. He's already brought in names like Gary Denbo and Jorge Posada from the Yankees organization, try to help him create a new culture in Miami. Although the Miami franchise began in 1993 and they have 2 World Series rings already under their belt, I feel that aside from those specific years in 97 and 2003, I haven't seen consistent contention from that team, which is surprising because they already have, like I said, 2 World Series rings. But I feel that Jeter will be able to turn the franchise around and make them more of a consistent contender, as opposed to every few years they make it into the playoffs and they run all the way to the World Series. This is how I see the National League East standings breaking down at the end of the season. I feel like Philadelphia is going to win the division. Philadelphia has good pitching and an abundance of hitting in a relatively smaller ballpark. I feel they have one of the best rosters overall constructed in the division, and I have the most faith in them and possibly bumping themselves even further into playoff aspirations. Honestly, I just don't see any other team in the division stacking up with the amount of firepower that Philadelphia has at this point. Bryce Harper is a very big game changer. The fact that he moved from one team in this division to another drastically shifts the balance of power in Philadelphia's favor. I feel that Washington will come in second place. I have faith in what Scherzer and Strasburg and Corbin will be able to do at the top of their rotation if they stay healthy. And I do feel that their lineup is going to be potent, but I still see them coming up a little short and vying for one of the wild card spots in the National League. I see the Braves regressing, more so because the rest of the division got better, and not as much because they got worse. I see them as being a very solid team, but I also see them in the mix for one of the wild card spots. Their pitching doesn't give me the sense of confidence the way the other teams in the division's pitching does. They probably have the least recognizable rotation names wise. At the same time, they're all young, so I could be saying next year they have the best rotation out of any of them. It all depends on what strides their young pitching makes, and their lineup isn't going to be a problem. The lineup is going to post up runs. It's a matter of, is their pitching going to be able to stop the opposing offenses on a consistent basis. I see the Mets coming in 4th place. I feel that 2019 will not be their year. I feel like 2020 and 2021 are more viable options for them really to make some noise. Just giving a little bit more time for their first base, third base prospects to develop. Their rotation's always going to be there, but I feel like they definitely need to extend Jacob deGrom and Syndergaard for them truly to be regarded as an elite team going forward. And then I see the Marlins coming in last place. As I said, they're not in a contention mode, they're more of a rebuild mode right now, but I'm looking for them to make noise in the next number of seasons, not so much right now. So that's how I see the National League breaking down. If you guys have any thoughts, leave a comment, let me know. I would love to hear back from you guys. Thank you very much.